Hello there, and welcome to Gooner U, where there are no degrees because the learning never stops. I'm Dove, a TA here at Gooner U, and my friend Keith is our stalwart distinguished professor of Arsenal and football studies. Enter our classroom as we discuss the week's news involving Arsenal, Premier League, Champions League, and international football, and sometimes MLS, but it's the off-season, because we're Americans. This week, Arsenal played Club Brugge / Brugge. We are not really clear on how it should be pronounced, so we'll continue saying Bruges like we have in past episodes. We played them in the Champions League, and then Wolves in the Premier League. Hello, Keith.
Hello, Dove. Happy holidays as we get closer to the holiday season.
Thank you. And to all of our viewers and listeners who celebrate, happy Hanukkah as we record. It's the first night of Hanukkah, so.
Yes, that's, it's, I'm celebrating, of course, the big holiday for me is the end of the school year. So, congrats to the end of the fall. Congrats to all faculty on the end of the fall semester. You made it again. And to the students too. You guys did all right. But
so you're done grading and all that stuff for the semester.
Yes, oh, nice. all that's filled in. Actually, I was earlier today. I attended an American football game, and I had forgotten just how long those days are. Like, not the game itself. Oh, the game took a little. It took about the same time an NFL game always does, but it just eats up your whole day. It really does. Attending the game. It's a lot of fun though. Had a good time. The Houston Texans were victorious. Right. So go local sports team. And but also we have Arsenal to talk about. So
in this week's news, we had the FA Cup draw. So tell me, who are we going to be playing in the it's third round, right? Where we enter the FA Cup?
Yes, Premier League teams enter in the third round in the first weekend of January. Actually, second one this year, but it's fine. We will be away to Portsmouth. Longtime Premier League watchers like myself will remember trips to Fratton Park to see Portsmouth, to see Pompey, as they are known. They haven't been there in a while in the Premier League. Apparently, in looking them up, they're the first English team to actually play in all four of the top levels. So they've been kind of up and down over the last 20 years. It's been an interesting 20 years for Portsmouth.
Interesting.
I'm not upset about this draw. Let's be clear about that. As we've asked for a non-Premier League level team, and we got one. Yes, could I nitpick and say, well, I'd rather be at home, but you know what? I'd rather be away to Portsmouth than home to, Villa or something.
Right. Yeah, agree with you there. So in other news, it's funny, we talked about the FIFA draw for the World Cup last week. One thing that I didn't hear about until after we were done, and I'll have a link to a YouTube short showing the soundbite in it for anyone who's interested. But it was funny, Donald Trump was there, current president of the United States, opining on the name football and its applicability to NFL, American football, and kind of telling them they should change it, And of course, he's playing to the audience there, right? It's a group of soccer people, and they're all raucously cheering, saying, "Yeah, we were football first," or whatever, whatever people say. But it's funny hearing that coming from him. You'd think typically you'd be more in favor of keeping American sports named as they are.
Donnie from Queens, you're on the air. I think it's really all I have to say about that. Okay.
All right, so this week we returned to the Champions League to play Bruges. We played them away in I guess it's in Club Brugge in Bruges in Belgium, right? Mm-hmm. And we came away with another 3 points in the Champions League, have still won every match there. This is our sixth now, and we won by 3 points, 3-0. It was not as foregone a conclusion with this match as we maybe felt during some of our other ones. Bayern Munich aside, that one was tough because they are a really tough team. I didn't necessarily feel like Bruges was the toughest team, and yet we did struggle a little bit more than we have in the past.
We did, and we talked a little bit about this sort of in the preview leading up to it. They're not a bad team. They get put in this Champions League setting, and obviously they don't measure up with, arguably even the top teams in like a Portugal or the Netherlands. But still, the Belgian league is not a bad league. They're going to be presumably have a little bit of experience. They're certainly going to be one of the stronger sides out of Belgium. And yeah, they're kind of floating around the not making it to the next round level in the table. But an away trip like that is tricky. They got a result against Barcelona at home. So this is not a team to be taken lightly. So in that sense, I'm not fully in the... you get to like March, and at that point, every week becomes, I don't care, give me 3 points. I don't care, give me 3 points. And we're not there yet. And I don't think our performance was that bad either. I think some of it was a credible performance by Bruges. And I do think some of it was, some of what we talked about last week, I think we're getting stretched a little thin, especially in personnel terms, especially on defense. I think you saw that with the number of shots we conceded. But overall, I mean, we wound up getting the 3 goals. We conceded none. Again, second consecutive clean sheet. Or, well, actually, no, it wasn't. Sorry. It was the second in the last 3 games, not counting with Villa in the middle. But still, a credible performance. Some things that could be concerned about, but overall, we won, and we won rather convincingly by the end.
Yeah. So how much of our performance do you think was down to the rotation? And also, how much of the rotation was due to injury, and how much of it was just due to the differences in competition and trying to rest some players, things like that?
Well, that's kind of what we've talked about coming into this. We expected a lot of rotation this week based on the competition, both Bruges and Wolves on the schedule after we had just kind of gone through over the previous week or so. So I wasn't surprised to see a lot of rotation. In fact, a lot of conversations I was having with people were how happy we were to see that kind of rotation, or the commentary that people had coming into that. I did not see Christian Nørgaard center back coming. That was a surprise. But I thought he was fine.
Yeah, he was credible. I liked seeing.
I expected a little more Calafiori, knowing we weren't going to have him for the weekend at all. But I think too, you don't want to just sit. Yeah, sorry.
So no, with Calafiori, just to add there, they said that there was some kind of training injury, I think, if I'm remembering right from the broadcast. It was like a minor thing, I think, but I think that was why you had Miles Lewis-Skelly in. I think I can check on that while you continue.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But yeah, I think we expected that level of rotation. Not that you're taking the week off, but you look at the relative quality of the sides and where we stand in both the tables. Obviously, especially in the case of Wolves, it ended up being a massive win to get because of how the table is starting to shake out. But I do think this was kind of a game or a kind of a week where we were going to be a little more careful. And then you start to look at the bench that we're rolling out. We don't have a lot on there on the defensive side. We're starting to get forwards back, as we'll talk a little bit about, but we don't have a lot there defensively, and it's starting to show a bit. And I think in this case here, it was showing a lot in the number of shots conceded. We gave up a lot of chances, not all on goal. Some of them were missed, but we're giving up far more chances, and that's getting a little. We got away with it against Bruges, and we almost didn't get away with it against Wolves. And so if you're starting to look for areas that cracks in the foundation, and look, we weren't going to roll through the schedule, the rest of the way until May. But I do think it's fair to kind of be a little bit, if not concerned, at least it's fair to look at that and say, this needs to get better. There's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And yes, as far as real-time follow-up, yeah, Calafiori had some kind of issue he was dealing with. I don't think anything serious, but they saw something that they wanted to hold him back. So that was why. So anyway, with Christian Nørgaard, I thought he was pretty credible as a center back. We're always learning about new capabilities of our defensive lineup.
I mean, that's something Arteta has really prized, is that kind of positional flexibility. Several people were talking about how they had flashbacks to Thomas Partey right back when they saw Nørgaard listed in the back line. That's not what we got, thankfully. But from the sound of it, he was was a solid performer. Also, it's not the kind of game where we're going to ask the center backs to defend the way we would ask, Saliba or Gabriel to necessarily defend. He's going to be asked to do something a little bit different. He is a player. I guess I'm a tiny bit surprised we haven't seen more of this season. Just in terms of thinking about the rapid, the rapid number of games that we've gone through and the 2 games a week, you would almost look for a little bit more because he's a credible Premier League player. That's why we purchased. That's why we bought him. But it was nice to see him out there, and I thought he acquitted himself fairly well in what he was asked to do, at least in terms of this game. So good job, Christian Nørgaard.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that he was asked to do was long throws. That's something we talked about a little bit last week, and we've talked about in the past, where you had said that, we don't really have anybody to do them at Arsenal, which is why we haven't been seeing them as much. But Nørgaard was doing it all game long against Bruges. And then we saw Declan Rice taking those also against Wolves. So it is something that they're trying to work in a little more, it looks like.
Yeah, my complaint with that, and this is more of a Declan Rice complaint, and I mean he can do a lot. Like he's good at a lot of things. I just don't see him hoofing the ball into the box. I mean, they had some set pieces, kind of setups where guys are running around, then they throw back to an open player, and that sets up something else that they're working on the field. But overall, the Nørgaard's were a little different. It's nice to know that if he's on the field, it becomes a potential weapon. But as we've talked about, we probably aren't going to see a lot of Nørgaard this season. But
yeah,
who knows? We have to be able to be creative in scoring.
Yeah, definitely. Meanwhile, we had Noni Madueke playing again and scoring a brace. The first 2 goals of the match were his in kind of commanding fashion. Like the first one, he swashbuckles. He is being pulled back by the defender and breaks free to just blast it into the goal at long range with a really nice shot. That was impressive.
That's a goal of the year contender there. That kind of run, even just the way he kind of dances around the defender just back closer to midfield, makes the run, as you said, kind of shrugs him off, and then rifles it in from outside the box. That's
well outside, yeah.
that goal is going to be in the conversation for goal of the season, at least from an Arsenal perspective, and maybe might make the Champions League list. That's an excellent goal from him.
Yeah, right in the corner, out of reach for the keeper, yeah.
And you might even see it. They're starting to throw around the FIFA's. So at the end of the year, FIFA gives out all their awards, most famously the Ballon d'Or, obviously the player of the year. One of the other awards they give it is the Puskás Award, which is for the goal of the year, named after Ferenc Puskás, the noted Hungarian striker, played for Real Madrid, Hungarian national team, Magical Magyars of the 50s. Yeah, so it's named after him. It's for the goal of the season.
Right.
Which, by the way, Declan Rice's second free kick against Real Madrid is one of the nominees for this past year. So,
nice.
Good luck, Deco.
They
probably
won't.
So
now we know which one they picked as their favorite of those 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a heck of a goal, and a guy who's made the most of his Arsenal time here. He's you bring someone in as essentially the backup to Bukayo Saka. You're not going to get a lot of opportunities, at least hopefully not, because it means he's healthy. But yeah, you make the most of them when you get them. And so fair play to Madueke for really doing something with it.
Yeah, then, not too long after, although it was, I guess it was long enough after. The first one was in the 25th minute. Second one came in the 47th minute, all the way at the very beginning of the second half with a really beautiful cross from Zubimendi. And then Madueke crashes into the goal and heading it in, crosses over the goal line. But it was effective. It was number 2.
Yeah, a little bit of who was? It seemed to be an Arsenal player. Every time he scored, he seemed to hurt himself. It looked like he was hurting himself. Was it Danny Welbeck? Anyway, yeah. But yeah, I mean, you again, take the most of your opportunities, and if it means you got to throw yourself in the net to include it, well, then by golly, that's what you're going to do. And right. And hey, yeah, two goals in the Champions League. So you got to feel good about that.
Yeah, and then it was within 10 minutes. Martinelli, who continues his streak of scoring in Champions League matches in remarkable fashion, again shoots it like Madueke from beyond the 18-yard line and just beautiful, just right into the corner, exactly where it needed to be. Nice shot.
Yeah, lovely ball. I mean, again, the same kind of from distance turns. He is very much a Champions League player. I think it's fair to say he's done a great job scoring in the Champions League, and that's what we talked about this pregame. Was it 5 games in a row of the Champions League?
Yeah, this was his 5th consecutive one. I guess he's the first gunner to do it since Thierry Henry. So that's
pretty good company to be in.
Yeah, it's funny to me as someone, again, who's still only a few years into following European soccer, and I guess soccer at all, compared to other sports where you have these concurrent, separate competitions. It's such a funny idea to me that you could have a player who is so clearly doing one thing in one league, and he hasn't been bad in the Premier League, but not to this level this season in the Premier League. It's kind of funny that can happen.
Well, I think there's a couple things going on there. One is the Champions League and the Premier League are 2 very different competitions because they're entirely different teams that are playing in them. I mean, I say entirely different. Obviously, Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea. Like, we know there are teams that are in both of them, but the way those games are officiated, the kind of competition you're facing, in some cases, the level of competition you're facing, the stylistic competition, and I do not remember where I heard this comment. And if it was in the broadcast, it was in some maybe the Arscast or any post-game stuff, or teams in the Champions League are not going to play Arsenal the way Wolves did, the way Villa did, where basically everybody else in the Premier League, even City and Liverpool, are sitting back and defending. Like right. that is not going to happen in the Champions League in large part. And I think they talk about this on the broadcast. Like, that's not how Bruges plays. They don't, like, week in and week out in the Belgian league. If they did that, every game would end 0-0. Like, they have to be the aggressive, the front foot attacking side, because that's who they are. In that division, they're one of the bullies, right? They're one of the big clubs that overwhelms everyone. They come here to the Champions League, and you can't do that necessarily against Arsenal, or you can, but you open yourself up to losing 3-0. I mean, we're not talking about Wolves yet, but think about it. Wolves came into that game, our game specifically, not to lose 3-0. That was their first priority. Don't let that happen to you. And Club Brugge just can't play that way. Like, stylistically, it's very difficult for them, and they don't want to. That's not who they see themselves. They have enough of an identity. That's not who they see themselves as, or what they're going to try to do. But as we said, it creates a lot more opportunities for us from an Arsenal perspective to advance and create some opportunities and score some goals, which we don't necessarily see. I mean, again, for a player like Martinelli, what's his greatest asset? It's his speed. You can't use that against a low block. I mean, we saw against Wolves. He's pretty ineffective against Wolves because his greatest asset isn't something that's very effective when they're already just sitting back behind you waiting to come into the box.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. So not too long after that goal, we had the return to play for Gabriel Jesus. It's been, 10 months or something? Almost a year since he got taken out.
It was 11 months. It was almost a full year. Because it was January that he went out.
Yeah, so it was good to see him back.
Hey, Jesus is the reason for the season, right, boys? It's his time of year.
The Handbrake Off was also talking about the possibility that he's maybe kind of trying to make a big statement and show that he's ready to play in the World Cup for Brazil, but that could be factoring into an over-the-top performance from him.
Well, I mean, I don't know about an over-the-top performance, but he came in, like, for him just to come back, right? I mean,
right.
He's had some pretty rough injuries, even before this most recent one had him out for basically the calendar year. So for him to come back and to get back to form, I mean, you look at Brazil, which is a weird thing to say, like, they're not settled at the top. Their forward line is not. They can't look at the forward line and say, we don't need Gabriel Jesus.
Okay.
If he can put in a credible performance, he can absolutely get himself into the Brazilian squad, especially with a manager like Carlo Ancelotti, who's not necessarily going to come in and play Federation favorites. He's an extraordinarily pragmatic manager who's able to get the best out of them and is going to know Jesus very well from having seen him in Europe in a lot of different contexts. I say with Martinelli, and they've talked about this on Handbrake Golf, and it feels weird to say, but I also kind of get it. Like, in some ways, it means more to a Brazilian to play for Brazil in a World Cup than it does for a lot of other countries. Not that listen, Cape Verde, Uzbekistan, Curacao, these countries that are making their debut appearance in the World Cup. It's going to be amazing. They're going to, it'll be a fantastic moment for them. Or, look, the great powers, right, of world soccer, Argentina, Germany, England, France, Spain. But Brazil is a little different because the Brazilian team is like that yellow shirt just means a little something different. And it feels weird to say, but it is kind of true. And so for him to have that opportunity, because he was at the World Cup 4 years ago and that kind of didn't go so well. And that's where he picked up some of those injuries. For him to come all the way back and do that. I mean, Martinelli too, I think, is a player who's looking at the World Cup and seeing like, this is something, this is my chance.
Right.
And Brazil, I would talk about how unsettled they are, parts of their roster. Brazil is always on the short list of teams that could actually win the whole thing.
Well, yeah, so maybe using the phrase over the top, maybe that was overstating it a little bit, but he came out swinging. Like, he was really trying hard to make moves, and he had some near attempts in his fairly short time. He was on for maybe half an hour or so at the end of the match, and it was good. It was a good outing for him.
I think we've forgotten just how good he was that first half in the first half of the season there in the fall of 2022. I do honestly believe if we had him, we win. We win the title in one of the last 3 years. I think probably was it 23-24, the one where City, pipped us by a point or whatever it was at the end. I think if we have him, we steal a draw that was a loss or a win that was a draw. Like, just to have that kind of a forward player with that ability, maybe it prevents us from dropping points in one other game.
Yeah. Well, speaking of late substitutions, we had a new face show up. Now, it's funny, this person who we're about to talk about, I had seen his face when I was gathering images from the matches last week for our shorts talking about Player of the Week. I always go through the official PR images that Arsenal puts out. And I saw this player's face, and I hadn't seen it before. Apparently his name is Marli Salmon, even though it's spelled the same as the fish, it's pronounced differently. I guess he's an academy player around the same age as Max Dowman, who is now getting a shot, sounds like, right?
Yep, 16. So Grizzled Vet, at least from Dowman's perspective. Marli Salmon came on. Yeah, congrats on the debut. That's awesome. You get to play in the Champions League game. Obviously, the fact that we were up 3-0 helped, as did the fact that we had no defenders on the bench at that point. I think that's a part of it. But hey, look, you got to take advantage of the circumstances when they're presented to you. Obviously, this is a reflection on how well, Arteta doesn't just put people on. He puts on players who are doing good things in training so that when the game comes around, like, that's generally what we've seen of him. He rewards those kind of performances. Clearly, Marli Salmon is making the most of those opportunities and has earned this chance to play in a Champions League game, to be able to say right now at the age of 16 that he's been in the Champions League. So congrats.
Yeah, it was good. I can't really say I really noticed too much that he'd done by that stage of the game. They were pretty much done. I was going to say done threatening us. They never really threatened us a lot. They had a couple bursts in there that were a little bit dangerous, but overall, it just felt like every time they had the ball, I wasn't really scared because they'd shown them after the first couple chances they were going to botch it one way or another. So it didn't really seem like a lot of danger from them.
Yeah, but a little bit more, I think, in the earlier part of the game. But in credit to Brugge, I mean, possession was 50-50. And they had 18 shot attempts, 7 of them on goal. I think it's the highest number for both of those that we've conceded this season.
Probably, yeah.
So maybe their finishing wasn't quite there, but that's not a bad performance. 3-0 maybe overstates our quality a little bit in this game. Maybe a 3-1 would have been, maybe they had, again, deserves got nothing to do with it, but they generated some opportunities, and again, we've talked about some of the troubles we've had on defense, and of course, Nørgaard Hincapie is yet another center back pairing that has to kind of figure out how to make it work on the fly in the Champions League. Like this is the sort of thing that's going to catch up to you, and it didn't hurt us at all against Bruges, which is great. We get the 3 points. We're 6 from 6. We are almost entirely assured of a top 8 spot and a well needed break in the first level of the knockout rounds. So good job all around.
Yesterday, as we record, we played Wolves in the latest Premier League kickoff I remember ever seeing. It was 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock for you for this one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is La Liga stuff, man. This is weird.
Yeah, it's especially weird given the top team playing the bottom team. I don't know why they would elevate that to what we would in America call prime time. I don't know that it works exactly the same way in England, but
it doesn't have quite the same cachet as I understand it. You're right. Yeah, I'm thinking obviously it's a Sunday here in the U.S. and so then the American football, but the premier game is supposed to be Sunday night football, which is not that. Now, granted, some of these games are scheduled or times are picked like a month in advance. Although we knew a month ago that Wolves was pretty weak. Yeah, currently it is the 5-8 Minnesota Vikings against the 6-1 Dallas Cowboys. So not exactly not exactly the cream of the crop on this one. There were a lot of other better games today in the NFL for those of you who care. But yeah, it doesn't have that same cachet in England necessarily. Still, it's a very continental thing. Like Spain, they play a lot of these later kickoffs. But, this is also, if you've ever visited Spain, you know full well that dinner doesn't even get served until 8 o'clock. So, yeah.
I got a lot of time for siesta.
Mm-hmm.
So with this Wolves game, my first and most prominent question is, what happened? I mean, we squeaked by with a very, very the thinnest of 2-1 victories that you could hope for, with the winner coming at the very end of stoppage time, like how Villa ended up defeating us. They only have 2 points. So what went wrong? How did this happen?
Well, let's start on a more positive note. I thought Wolves played really well. Really well as far as their limited opportunities. And we sort of talked about the difficulty of defending, right? Defending takes a lot more effort than attacking. There's that sense of pressure you're always under. You can't afford to make a mistake. We think about how we've seen it over the last couple of years, the times when we're in a situation of some last-ditch defending. To essentially do that from the off, right? From the very beginning of the game, that's how you're going to play. I thought they played pretty well. I thought they did a good job denying us opportunities. Yeah, there were a lot of points where we sort of built the horseshoe of death right around the box and never quite penetrating. But they did a good job holding their form. They blocked a lot of shooting lanes. You saw times where you kind of wanted a guy to shoot, but clearly he didn't have a good angle because there was a defender stepping in the way. So first, credit to them overall. I thought they played probably their strongest game of the year. Now, having said that, this is a team that has won 2 games in all competitions this season, including preseason. They did not win a single game in preseason, which I know doesn't really count, doesn't really matter. But they are on pace.
For them in all competitions, we're talking about what? I guess the Carabao Cup they've also been competing in,
right? Yeah, and they're
not playing in Europe though, right?
Right. No, they're not. No, they are not. Yeah, they started the Carabao Cup a round earlier than we did. They've actually won 2. They won 2 Carabao Cup games that got knocked out in the previous round.
Okay,
in the most recent round. Sorry. Yeah, they are. I mean, they're on pace to break the record, the worst The worst team in Premier League history. That was 2007-08 Derby, or 8-09 Derby. Yeah, they're bad. Let's not sugarcoat this. They're not a very good team. They've struggled all year. I think they've already fired 2 managers. It's not good. So we are absolutely within our rights as fans to be bothered and have higher expectations for Arsenal's performance in this game, and say to a certain extent, Wolves put in their best performance of the season. Now, that being said, they were undone by 2 own goals. And if you're a Wolves fan, they're going to feel hard done by, and I totally get that. And I say this as someone who has watched in other sports a lot of bad teams over the years. These are the things that happen to bad teams. Like, these are the things that go wrong when you're just not that good. And it's frustrating because you think it allows you to sort of play that what if game. What if this? What if we only did this? And then you realize, yeah, sure, if you got all those what ifs, you'd be champions, but that doesn't happen to anyone. But even if you got a couple of those what ifs, you're still getting relegated. Like, they are struggling mightily, and we're going to get a lot of criticism for the own goals. And my answer to that is, well, look, you didn't like when we scored set piece goals. I don't know what else you want. But I mean, did we get away with this one a little bit? Yeah. But I think also, we'll talk about the individual goals. We created those goals with some of our own quality. Like, we created those opportunities in those goals.
Yeah, none of those were just kind of goofs, so to speak. It wasn't like we talked about with the MLS Cup final a couple of weeks ago, how the first goal that was the only goal for a long stretch of that match was a cross that just kind of got cleared over the goal line instead of the byline. These weren't that. These were strikes. Like, these were crosses that were intended to go into the goal that were arguably on their way in anyway, had Wolves not touched them at all. So, it's in our defense, it wasn't just like, oh, they goofed and they gave us a couple gifts. I mean, that wouldn't necessarily have gone differently had they not done that. But why don't we talk about these? So the first one was off of a Saka corner kick. And this is one where Johnstone goes to punch it clear, only he punches it and it goes backwards still. He doesn't punch it forward. And then it goes off of the post, the far post from the corner kick, but nearest to where he was standing, goes off the far post, then off of his own shoulder and back into the goal. It's just an improbable ricochet.
Well, I mean, the obvious point in comparison is the Emi Martinez goal from a couple of years ago, Villa, where he struck it. It was Jorginho, right? Struck it off the post, hits the back of his head, and goes in. It wasn't quite as funny as that one. But yeah, I mean, first off, I mean, credit to Saka. I mean, that's an outstanding corner. He had a couple good corner deliveries. He always had a really good game. Saka did. I think he was arguably our best player across the field. Had another one that looked like it might have been going in and just got cleared off the line by, I think a misplay from one of our forwards, or maybe their defender got to it. But part of it is, so the keeper's going backwards. He kind of gets his hand on it, but because he's falling backwards, all he can do is just sort of push it into the bar. I mean, I wonder that one without him touching it, is that an Olympico? Does that just go in directly from the corner? Or even, I mean, part of it is because he hits it while falling backwards, or even if he doesn't hit it, he's falling backwards. There's nothing he can do. Like, he's completely lost his balance. He's falling. The ball hits off him. You're just out of it. The most you could say is if he's not in the way, if it ricochets off the post, then it's in the mixer in the 6-yard box, and who knows who gets to it first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it was just one of those ones where you needed to see the replay like 4 or 5 times to see exactly the path that it took to ripple the net. It was it was fun, but
I guess I'd say too, like we talked about how goals change games. I guess by this point, we were starting to get a little nervous because that goal was 70th minute. It was starting to get a little nervy because we talked about that, right? Last season, how many times we get to the stage of the game and just like, I haven't scored yet. And then surely we give up a goal, or we do score and then we concede and we get a draw. Like, this is one, there's a lot of things we've seen a lot of things go wrong in this context previously. This was a relief. It was definitely a sense of relief when it went in.
Yeah. I mean, and it lasted for 20 minutes or so until the last minute of regulation time, when we had a very poor performance and let the ball get headed in. Can you break down a little bit what led to that? I just don't get why. It was reminiscent of the Villa goal that we allowed in around the same part of the game last week.
Yeah, a lot of it is really just we fell back. And I don't want to say like we fell into a defensive shell like it was planned. I'm sure Arteta wasn't. It was. I'm imagine if you see him on the sidelines, he's probably like, screaming at them to not do that. But we were sitting back. We were trying to play defense. We were trying to defend. We were conceding time and space to them, and you just can't do that. I know they're bad. I know their season's terrible. I know we already know they're getting relegated, and we're still 2 weeks away from Christmas. They're a Premier League quality team. They are professionals. You give them those kind of chances, and there's a good chance they're going to find something, and they did. And there were a couple of times where the ball came into the box, and it was Rice or Hincapie or whoever was just kind of hoofed it forward out of the box. Which on the one hand, yeah, you want to clear the lines, get it out of there, but you kind of look and go, listen. You had time and space. Trap it, dribble forward, see if there's a passing opportunity, see if there's something you can generate going the other way. You had the time and space, and you were treating it like you were already in stoppage time, and yet it's like the 84th minute. Like you just can't do that. Now, how much of that is the injuries and we said the exhaustion? I mean, I think these guys are a little worn out, partly because of the 2 games a week, but also the injuries, especially on the defensive side. I mean, we had one defender on the bench at the start of this game, and then he had to come in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Saliba and Timber was the center back pairing. Another new center back pairing this game. Like there's just that kind of stuff does catch up to you a little bit. And we were, it's a little bit of both. We're sitting back too much. We're too delayed. But also, you could see them running out of gas.
Well, hopefully this week's rest until the next game will help with that a little bit, I guess.
Get some rest. Hopefully get a few guys back. Hopefully, we saw Ben White come off. That's a hamstring. You could see him gripping it when he came up. That's hamstrings are tricky. That's a couple of weeks probably. Man, that's tough. That is a tough one.
It's tough too because like he'd been doing well. This is his longest stretch he's had with us for at least a couple seasons, and it's a shame to see him have to get taken off like that.
Yeah, I mean it's just obviously Timber is the first choice right back. And a lot of that, some of that obviously stems from his quality, but you think about 2 seasons ago, Timber gets hurt on opening day, and Ben White has to play the entire season. And then the next season, Ben White gets hurt basically early on, and then Timber has to play pretty much the entire season. And it's frustrating that we 2 quality players. We've really, even this season, White was hurt for a good chunk of it. Like it never quite. You can't put them both on the field at the same time. Well, you can, but like they're both. You can only have one right back at a time, and so you haven't been able to quite work them in. But yeah, he's been playing well. So hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully it's something they can kind of work through. Again, getting a week off before things get essentially a week off. We don't play again until Saturday. Before things get a little weird and crazy with the Carabao Cup and the holidays will help. But yeah, we're running on fumes a little bit, and I think there's a physical component to that, but I do think there's a mental component to that, and I think it has to be incumbent on the players to think about how tired they are, like to sort of mentally push your way through that, and I think they will in general, and credit to them, because we're going to talk about this next, right? This could have easily been a moment where that exhaustion, physical and mental, kind of overwhelms you, conceding the goal in stoppage time, and all of a sudden you're just like, you're just out of it. And to their credit, they were absolutely, they did it. They had none of that. They came.
They were not done. Yeah. Yeah, so credit to Jesus there. I mean, so again, Saka with a brilliant cross into the box that Jesus was teed up for. And the first 3 or 4 times I saw the replay, it looked like Jesus had gotten the header off of Saka's cross until they showed it from the opposite angle where you could see his face and the face of Mosquera, but not our Mosquera, who's injured, the Mosquera from Wolves, who's defending him, whose head actually makes contact with the ball and scores Wolves' third goal of the game and their second into their own net. So
yes. Yerson Mosquera, who's from Colombia, so not as opposed to our Christian Mosquera, who's Spaniard.
Right.
Actually, fun little bit. Someone pointed this out to me in the evening. Mosquera and Jesus have actually had a run-in before. Last season, you may remember a game where there was a player who somewhat cheekily gave Jesus a little squeeze on the backside.
I knew the name Yerson Mosquera sounded familiar when I saw it. That's what that was.
That's him.
Yes.
So on some level, I suppose there's a little bit of poetic justice in the fact that he concedes the own goal after having, while challenging for a ball against Gabriel Jesus.
Right.
For the sake of the narrative, I would have liked Jesus to score, obviously, to be able to have that. But again, we talk about the own goal. Jesus is right there. And if that ball gets to him and instead of Mosquera, it's probably still going, or there's a good chance it still winds up in the back of the net. So yeah, their own goals, and yeah, technically, on the score sheet says Sam Johnstone and Yerson Mosquera. We created those goals. Arsenal created those goals. Saka created the goal. He gets the assist. Phantom assist there. I mean, I know we do player of the week, but I'll just sit here and say for the man of this match, Saka was our best player by a wide margin.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But he was excellent and basically generated both of those goals. He was the last Arsenal player to touch the ball on both of them. So if this were hockey, he would have 2 goals.
Right. So one other thing that I thought was kind of funny, we had talked about the Premier League kits when they were announced, the change kits, and we talked about which ones we liked and didn't like. And I think I may have picked this one that Wolves was wearing as one of the ones that I liked. I liked the colors. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny, though, that seeing it alongside the fans wearing their primary yellow, it occurred to me this is probably the laziest kit design of any of the away kits, because someone just hit the invert button in Photoshop. It's like the negative of their yellow jerseys would be something pretty close to this cyan color, is the opposite on the color wheel of their yellow, but it looks nice.
I mean, it's a change kit, so it has to look definitely different. So yeah. It's just weird. It feels so un-Wolves. Like, I kept looking at it and I kept having to remind myself, oh yeah, it's Wolves. We're playing Wolves, right? It is not a color at all I associate with Wolves, but it's a change kit, so it's
why
fine.
Why couldn't they wear yellow with our white and red? It doesn't seem like those clash.
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure we've seen them wear their yellow at the Emirates. I think it was just a case of they probably haven't worn it in a while and wanted to try and sell some. I mean, remember, Arsenal has like an entire extra set of games between with the Champions League, so we have a lot of opportunities to work in our kits a little differently. And also, red is a much more common color, so we have to change out. Wolves wears yellow. Who else wears yellow?
Yeah, that's true. In the Premier League, not much. Yeah, yeah. But so where does this leave us? Like, what are your feelings coming out of this match?
I am definitely of 2 minds. I think I said we're not in full pragmatic mode. Like, I don't care how you do it. Just get, like, when you get to like March, when it's like, or April, like, just get 3. I'm not there yet. And this, I think, was sort of the same thing we talked about with the Bruges game a few minutes ago. Like, you're starting to see it grind a little bit. I saw this comment elsewhere. I was thinking about this. I saw this comment elsewhere, like, on the one hand, it's kind of silly, like how many games we end up having to play. A lot of clubs like Arsenal, especially the bigger clubs with with Champions League and the league, have to play in rapid succession to each other. And you think on some level, like, you don't want that, right? Don't you want the teams to be at their best quality? Don't you, like, almost like, imagine they're opening up FIFA or EAFC or whatever the game's called now, and you just played a friendly between Arsenal and Wolves. Wouldn't you want the teams to be at full strength? And of course, if you're Wolves, and arguably if you're the neutral fan, the answer is no, I don't. I want it that the injuries, the tiredness creates a little more jeopardy. And so, yeah, I kind of get why they would like that, but it is frustrating to watch at times. Now, having said that, we can be critical of the performance and the performances that have been turned in. I understand Arsenal fans who are looking at this and saying, oh no, it's the holiday season again. This is where things start to fall apart for us. We start to fall behind. I mean, I think some people are looking, City is 2 points behind us, and we've always, we know about them, right? Here they come. I'll say this. The City teams we were worried about, the points that we feared in the past, the ones that overtook us, those teams, like, we looked at them, and their dropped points were a couple of late draws that maybe they didn't deserve, and they maybe still only had one loss on their ledger. This City team's already lost 4 times. Like, this City team still has some holes and some weaknesses. Are they going to have a strong second half? Oh, yeah, probably. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're still City. They're still ridiculously talented. They still have an excellent manager. But I don't fear them the same way I did 2 years ago or 3 years ago. They're not that same team. We aren't either. Arsenal's not that same team either. So, yeah. Like, I'm concerned a little bit about some of what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, but also, like, that's why we were so good early on. I think we'll see where everyone comes out. I guess we'll see where it comes out in the wash. I also really don't like, and this is kind of a side bit, the way, like, every game turns into a referendum on the title race. like we talk about the Chelsea game, right? Chelsea gets the draw. Oh man, Chelsea are back in the title race. It's the first week of December. There's no title race. Like, let's all just calm down a little bit. I know it feels like City goes and runs away and hides with the league, starting in like January. This isn't that league. This isn't that season. This isn't that team just yet. We've got to put up results. And I look in the holidays, and look again. We just needed a stoppage time own goal to beat the worst team in the league. But I look at what we're going to see over the next couple of weeks: Everton, Palace, Brighton, Villa. Switch over the calendar year: Bournemouth, then Liverpool, then Portsmouth in the FA Cup, then Forest. Like, that's the next month for us. That's manageable. Those are all good teams. They're all capable of beating us. But like, we've talked about like how the tough stretches we had, right? Oh man, Liverpool, United, and City right away, and Newcastle right away. Oh man, we had to do Spurs, Bayern, and Chelsea in 1 week. This ain't that stretch.
Right.
And it's going to be a grind at sometimes. It's going to be ugly sometimes, but I think they can find their way through it. And let's see where we are. If you're going to panic, let's panic a month from now. Let's see where we are a month from now. And for all we know, honestly, the most likely scenario, I think, is we are right in the same place we are a month from now. We're just, 2 points neck and neck with City. And City, honestly, is the team I look at as the real competition. I'm not afraid of Villa. I'm not afraid of Chelsea. Frankly, not afraid of Liverpool at this point.
No, not this season. No,
not this season's Liverpool. Let's see where we are. It's going to be an interesting stretch, but I think we have enough depth and quality to get through it. We just also have to stop hemorrhaging defenders. Hopefully start to get a few people back.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That will be welcome. Speaking of getting players back, we were dealing with some heavy rotation in both of our matches, but manifested itself in a kind of predictable way, sort of. So once you knew that Nørgaard was in center back, everything else kind of made sense against Bruges. But with Wolves, I was lost the first 5 minutes trying to figure out who was playing where on the back line. So can you walk me through what they did there?
So Saliba's at center back, left center back, because he's William Saliba and he plays left center back.
Right.
Pierre Hincapié was the left back and definitely doing more of our traditional left back things. On the other side, you had Jurrien Timber was listed as the center back and Ben White was listed as the right back. Now, there's a school of thought, and Arsenal is increasingly playing this way, right? That your starting position is really just where you stand at kickoff. And that once the game begins, you start to drift into different positions. And we saw both Timber and White making runs along with Saka and Eze down the right-hand side. We ran everything down that side. We ran a lot down that side during the game, and there was a lot of that kind of movement, interplay back and forth, a lot of potential danger there. Eze didn't quite come off. I didn't think he had a particularly strong performance in that group. I thought White and Timber were doing well, both of them combined with Saka really nicely. Then, of course, White got hurt, and we saw Lewis Skelly come on. I feel like at that point they shifted Hincapié into the center back position and put Lewis Skelly in at left back, and then pushed Timber out to the right back, is how I read what was going on. But we're still doing that thing where guys are starting to appear in different areas and make different runs. There are plenty of times where Zubimendi and Declan Rice are actually the deepest players back. And at times I saw William Saliba making runs at the box, which I thought was interesting to look at. So there's that positional flexibility that we're working on. Not necessarily, again, you're only really listed where you start, but it's more interesting to see what you actually do on the field and where people are positioning themselves. And so, it is kind of interesting how we try to overload that. All the different things we're trying to do to break down that box, give them something different and unexpected to look at.
Which, by the way, we didn't actually explicitly note when we talked about this match, but yes, William Saliba was back.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Good and worth noting. It was funny, too.
Guys coming back.
Yeah, I was wearing my Saliba jersey expecting that he might not end up playing, but he did. And it's like, oh, cool. That worked out. For this week, why don't you tell everyone who we have both decided is our player of the week?
Our player of the week is going to be Gabriel Jesus. Some of this is narrative driven. Obviously, just so great to see him come back after having been out for almost a calendar year. But I think also, too, it's worth pointing out he was dangerous in both games. He created a lot of opportunities. He created the critical opportunity, the winning goal at the end of the Wolves game. He created a lot of those opportunities against Bruges. So he didn't just appear out of nowhere. Like I talked about, Saka, I think, was the best player for the Wolves game, but he really didn't do a whole lot against Bruges, or by the time he came on, the game was kind of already over. Or ultimately already over. But to me, overall best performance from the week, to me, I think it has to be Jesus, and including the critical bit about scoring the winning goal and avoiding what would have been a pretty disastrous turn of events had we dropped those points, because then we'd be level with City, and I wouldn't blame people for being a little bit nervous.
Yeah, definitely. And the tough thing for me was with the Bruges match, I had too many players to pick from who were all doing well. Like, it was overall a really good performance from us. There's a bunch of names, not as much in the Wolves match, and Jesus being one who did very well in both matches. And ultimately, he was in good form both times. His contribution in Wolves was probably one of the most important moments of the week, where had he not made that chance happen, that is really embarrassing for us. Like, that's bad. It was a huge moment drawing that victory out from the situation. That was really huge. I should also mention someone who we didn't really talk about, but was definitely in the running for player of the match for me, and might have been the player of the match for me for the Bruges match, was David Raya. We haven't called on him so much this season so far to make really big saves, and at least not to make more than like one in a game, but he did. He had to against Bruges. That's owing a lot to what you were talking about earlier, where we just gave up that many more shots to them than we have to other clubs so far this season. But he was there. He did it. He really saved that from going the other way a few times. So.
Yeah, a lot of credit there, too. He made one or two big saves against Wolves as well. He had that one where, was it Huang
Yeah, he broke. He-Chan Wang. Yeah,
He-Chan Wang. Essentially got a breakaway. He had 10 players behind the ball in their end. Went up with a breakaway, and he makes a pretty good save on a dangerous opportunity. So I know Raya. I thought Raya overall had a pretty good week, which is kind of weird to say about the quality when we talk about the quality of play. But he only conceded 1 goal, and especially Bruges. I think you're right. I think he's definitely a shout. I mean, I think Madueke too for that Bruges game, as we talked about, probably walks away with it for me. But credit to Raya for that performance also.
Yeah. All right, time for table talk. So let's talk about the Premier League first. That is our home league. We'll talk about that, then we'll shift over to the Champions League a little bit. So we're top of the table. It's fun to say every week, as long as it's true.
2 points up on City through 16 games. Again, we're not even halfway through the season yet. Let's not overstate this. 2 up on City, 3 up on Aston Villa, and then 8 points up on fellow title challenger Chelsea. That was entirely about sticking it to Chelsea. But otherwise, and then Crystal Palace is in 5th with 26 points. So,
yeah, no, it's good. Not a whole lot of movement there, but it's good to see we kept things the same at the top and didn't allow that to slip. So in the Champions League, what else has changed? We know that we're still top, having won every single match and being the only team to do so. How is everyone else doing?
So we are 3 points clear of Bayern Munich, 18 points to 15 points. We had talked last week, we had clinched our spot in the knockout round. At this point, we have actually officially clinched a seed. Now, quick explanation. So the top 8 teams we know automatically advance to the round of 16. The next 16 teams, so that's teams 9 through 24, go into the knockout phase playoffs. The top 8 are seeded, meaning they can't play each other. They'll face one of that bottom 8 teams. We're guaranteed to finish in the top 16. Now, I look ahead on a schedule, and by our reckoning, our math, we are, I think, all but assured a spot in the round of 16. So if we look at the team in 9th, it's currently Liverpool on 12 points. If we get 1 point in our last 2 Champions League games, we'll be at 19 points. At 12 points, Liverpool cannot catch us at that point. So a result in one of our final 2 Champions League games, which for a reminder are away to Inter Milan and home against Kairat of Kazakhstan. All we need is a point, and we're guaranteed to finish in the top 16s, or advance into the round of 16, finishing in the top 8. So, well done to the club as a whole for putting themselves in that position with 2 games left to play. Yeah,
remind me how we did at the San Siro last year.
That was a defeat, a 1-0 defeat. It was. Which Arteta is probably going to want to feels a little. I gotta think they feel like we want that one back. I expect a strong team to come out there. That'll be sort of at the end of the holidays. We're about a month away from that game.
Yeah.
And Inter Milan's been to 2 of the last 3 finals. They're currently sitting 6th in the league phase. I wouldn't want to talk about them too much, but it's arguably our toughest game in terms of the away to a pot 1 team. But then we play Karat, who's dead last in the table at home. I think we're going to pick up a point. I think.
Oh boy, I hope so.
As we came out of Wolves, just saying the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. but yeah, same thing applies. But we have overall been doing even better in the Champions League than we've been doing in the Premier League to date. So yeah, hopefully that stays that way. What is coming up for next week?
Well, thankfully, just 1 game. Everyone take a deep breath. We've only got 1 game coming up next week. We are away to Everton. It is our first ever trip to the Hill Dickinson Stadium in their new docks stadium along the River Mersey at the docks in Liverpool. It'll be interesting to see. It's right there on the docks. It looks nice. I don't know anything about it. Everton generally seems to have played well there. They're currently sitting 9th in the table. Under David Moyes, they've always been a team that kind of causes us some problems. So I expect a tight affair. Hopefully, with the week off, we're a little more energetic than we have been, and we're able to bounce back with a strong performance. But yeah, this is not a team to overlook. A team that's certainly capable of causing us some problems. So let's go out and take it to them.
Yeah, and that one is going to be, I guess, on USA. Not totally clear on how we're going to be able to stream that one, but I guess we'll figure that out. Either NBC Sports or Peacock. I guess probably NBC Sports.
I see it as being listed as the NBC Sports Network,
which I don't know what that is.
Is that it used to be a thing? Is that still not a thing? I thought they did close that. I don't know what's going on there.
But yeah, I mean, it is listed as being on Peacock Premium, so I think we should be able to stream it live on Peacock. Thanks for joining us at Gooner U. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to the podcast version of our show on Apple, Spotify, and some other places. If you're only listening, try watching us on YouTube with a link in the show notes. And as you're doing that, your homework for today, just for those audio version listeners, is to please rate and review our show wherever you're listening to this. It really does help with new listeners finding the show, and we always appreciate that. We do record the show using Zencaster. If you would like to try it out, you can support Gooner U by signing up using the link in the description, which also has links to everything we talked about and our socials. Again, my name is Dove, and you can find me on Twitter at Dove Frankel. With me, as always, is Keith, and you can find him in a pub watching Arsenal matches.
Everyone take a deep breath. It's going to be okay.